Oh, how the tables have turned. In 2020, when a bunch of attorneys were stepping up to defend President Trump against a rigged and stolen election, there was one group called the 65 Project that was created to go after those lawyers, to file bar complaints and to try to take them off the playing field so that they couldn't practice law anymore, right? Going after their licenses to try to eliminate them. Now time has passed, and now America First Legal is representing Stefan Passantino, who is the lawyer for Cassidy Hutchinson, ex-lawyer rather, before she left and joined the blue team. They have filed a bar complaint against Michael Teeter, the guy who runs the 65 Project, the guy who was initiating this onslaught against Republican lawyers. And so a very nice post. He's getting hit with his bar complaint of his own, and it's from our friends at America First Legal. Now, we know the 65 Project was literally created to disbar lawyers. Remember, they did this with doctors and everybody else. They did this with many people. If you were trying to train somebody at your gym or cut somebody's hair, they were trying to eliminate your business during COVID. Same thing happened here, but this was political. This was back, so was COVID though, against Trump. If you even represented him or filed a motion or spoke out, they'd come after you with a bunch of these people. Now, these are the people who are on the board there at the 65 Project. They say in the immediate aftermath, Trump lawyers filed 65 lawsuits. And so this is a bipartisan effort now to protect democracy. We're holding the big lie lawyers accountable, and they're filing complaints. So these are the people who are on the board over there. Chief Justice Christine Durham, Roberta Ramo, Renee, these other bow tie fellas. Then they've got this guy. This is the managing director. He's the guy who's getting the bar complaint right now, Michael Teeter. And they're just an organization to try to stop attorneys from even practicing law because they disagree with their politics. And they're not even alleging that the lawyers broke the law. They're just saying that they represented Trump, which was a bad thing. So they filed nearly 100 ethics complaints against lawyers, and they filed one against Mr. Passantino. You remember Mr. Passantino, the same lawyer who represented, at one time, Clavicle Girl, Cassidy Hutchinson. And then Cassidy Hutchinson was betraying her own lawyer by leaking information and messages over to Liz Cheney and the fake prosecution that was happening there. And so they are now responding in kind. And America First Legal released the full press release over on their website. And I'd encourage you to follow them and support them. But we'll take a look at the full filing and see what they submitted in here. This one is going over to the Office of Professional Conduct in Salt Lake City, Utah, to Christine. What's up, Christine? They say, Dear Miss Greenwood. And just to back up on this, let's be clear. The 65 Project and organizations like them, their intended purpose, in my opinion, is to chill speech. It's to stop people this cycle from getting involved. If they steal 2024, they don't want a bunch of lawyers filing a bunch of lawsuits. And so they want to chill their speech. They did a bunch of that in 2020. Now, if Trump wants to file a lawsuit, a bunch of lawyers are going to be going like this. Do I want to represent him on that? I might lose my license, lose my law practice, might lose everything because of these people who are trying to come after our livelihood. So it matters now. And now the tables are turning because America First is filing a bar complaint back towards them. They say, we represent Stefan Passantino in filing this complaint against Michael Teeter. He was admitted to practice law in 2018. Now, as the legal profession plays a critical role in a free society, attorneys must be free to be zealous advocates on behalf of their clients, to take on matters or causes that might be unpopular and to do so without attacks on their reputations from those who just have a different viewpoint. Like, you can represent your criminal defense attorney. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I can represent somebody who's been charged with domestic violence and represent them vigorously and effectively and victoriously and even get them free. Doesn't mean I agree with domestic violence in any way. It would be like him coming at me. I can't believe you represent domestic violence victim or defendants. There's victims of these crimes. So you should not have a law license because you're getting abusers off scot-free. It's nuts. Same thing is happening here. Trump is entitled to a defense and entitled to his day in court and to have good lawyers making those arguments if they want to take him on as a client without having the fear that their business is going to be evaporated. When members of the bar seek to attack other members of the bar simply because of the clients, the causes they advance, or worse, because of meritless lies and half-truths, the entire profession suffers. Now, for the reasons we outlined, Michael Teeter and his conduct towards our client and his conduct towards other lawyers falls short of the standards of the legal profession. Now, Mr. Teeter is the managing director of the 65 Project, a left-of-center lawfare organization whose leadership includes Melissa Moss, a former finance chair of the DNC. Oh, that's great. A prominent liberal consultant called David Brock. Oh, that guy. The 65, is he one of these bow-tied fellas? I don't think he's on here. He's not on this board. They probably didn't want to put him on there. Huh? All right, so he's on there. The 65 Project was formed for the purpose of disbarring Trump-aligned attorneys and Trump's legal allies. When it was formed, Mr. Teeter told CNN that creating a system of deterrence requires that people know these complaints have been filed. But critics like Fordham law professor Bruce Green have called these tactics problematic because they're, quote, basically designed to embarrass these lawyers, and that may have the effect of discouraging lawyers from engaging in politically involved work, even if they're following the rules. In the last several years, the 65 Project, through Mr. Teeter, has filed nearly 100 ethics complaints against lawyers it views as being aligned with Trump. As part of the campaign, they filed a complaint against Stefan Passantino, the lawyer here, who we've talked a lot about, alleging that Passantino was deficient in representing Cassidy Hutchinson before the J6 committee. In the complaint, Teeter said that Passantino, quote, sought to, quote, obstruct the select committee's inquiry to uncover the full context of J6. All right. Mr. Teeter claimed that our client breached confidentiality, advised his client Cassidy to perjure herself, and sought to undermine the administration of justice. Notably absent from Teeter's complaint was any indication that he had firsthand knowledge of anything. He's like filing a complaint on behalf of Cassidy? What? Indeed, much of the language in his complaint against Passantino was the same boilerplate language used in many of his other complaints. This guy didn't suffer any harm at all. What standing does he have? The only allegations that were specific to Passantino relied entirely on allegations from the J6 committee, from the hearing transcripts, and one CNN news article that relied on anonymous, quote, sources. Now, our client, Stefan, represented Hutchinson in the lead up to her testimony before the J6 committee. This month, the House Committee on Administration exposed that, far from being told to lie by Mr. Passantino, Ms. Hutchinson was communicating with and being coached by then Representative Liz Cheney without our client's knowledge. He was being backstabbed by his own client. It was like painful for me. This brings into question Ms. Hutchinson's September 2022 interview with the J6 committee, where she criticized our client's representation and which formed a large part of the factual basis for his complaint. So she talked to the J6 committee, not to Teeter. Indeed, our new messages appear to indicate that the allegations were not just lacking in personal knowledge, but that they're actually false. So he didn't know anything about it, and they're not even true. Not satisfied with nearly 100 ethics complaints against attorneys with whom he had no personal knowledge or experience, last month, the 65 Project began running advertisements online and in legal journals in swing states, promoting the message. They said, look at this. Don't lose your law license because of Trump. They're trying to dissuade other lawyers from representing him. These ads appear to discourage lawyers who might be inclined to represent Trump. And so this violates the rules of professional conduct. In fact, Rule 8.4 says it's professional misconduct to engage in conduct that is prejudicial to the administration of justice. And Utah recently examined this, and they said our legal system could not function if the side whose view is rejected is in jeopardy of professional misconduct on that basis alone. You have to actually do something wrong. Now, these numerous misconduct complaints appear based on one simple premise. They say people should not represent Trump or anyone associated with Trump. Wherever serious disputes exist, it's better for everybody to be represented by an attorney. So we don't want to dissuade people from having attorneys. In fact, we want more people to have attorneys. We have whole systems created for this. Mr. Teeter's allegations that our client was deficient in representing Cassidy have been proven false. Congress has confirmed that Cassidy, when testifying, was acting on the advice of Cheney, not on Stefan Passantino, our client. And so you're saying that she followed his advice? It's not even true. She was following Cheney's advice. Additionally, the complaint contains a section entitled Background, which is unrelated to our client and is a general description of the events around 2020. It has nothing to do with him. Mr. Teeter's complaint concerned our client's representation of a party before the J6 committee, which was not convened for the first time until after the election was even over. Many of the complaints contain these background sections, which are irrelevant to our client. This reliance on boilerplate language and recent ad campaigns that are currently being run shows that their principle is to punish lawyers associated with a single client. It doesn't allow that under the rules. That's bad faith. Similarly, it also violates Rule 301. It says lawyers shall not, without an adequate factual basis, attribute to other counsel improper motives, purpose, or conduct. So don't trash talk other lawyers unless you can back it up. Don't run your mouth unless you've got the game. You got to have facts for that. Lawyers should avoid hostile, demeaning, and humiliating words to disparage the integrity or behavior of an adversary unless such matters are directly relevant under controlling law. Now, his complaints were not based on any personal knowledge or any adequate factual basis instead. And all he did is read news reports and hearing transcripts, many of which have been proven false. His complaint does not indicate that he spoke with Miss Hutchinson, doesn't say he talked to her at all, or was in any way able to provide insight into the representation that she got. All he was doing was citing CNN. Without any direct knowledge of anything, there is no factual basis to file this. It's just speculation. He describes our client's reminder that it is acceptable not to recall every detail of an event in the past. He said, Cassidy, yeah, if you don't remember, just say, I don't remember. It's okay to say that. Just say, I don't remember. He said, when he told her that was advising her against speaking truthfully, that's telling her to lie. What? No, it's how it goes. If you don't remember, say it. It's actually the honest thing to say. Mr. Teeter also made unsighted statements attributing improper motives and conduct to Stefan Passantino, purporting to give insights into our client's motives. He doesn't even know those. He said that his tactic was to prepare her as little as possible so that she would be less able to answer questions and stonewall the investigation. How the hell would he know that at all? He further disparaged our client's morals and ethics. He said Passantino was apparently serving some other interest or advising his client in this way. Here, he's saying that he was actually representing Trump, which is offensive to him and actually the opposite of what he was doing. And Cassidy's own text messages confirmed that Passantino was trying to really finagle Cassidy's testimony so that she didn't get obliterated by either side. He didn't want to just walk her in and say, tell the J6 committee everything, because her life was involved in the MAGA community at that time. So he concluded his letter with an allegation presented as fact. He said, Mr. Passantino engaged in a dishonest effort to obstruct justice, but he doesn't know anything. He doesn't knowingly have any facts or personal knowledge. And so he's trying to create an inference to create a record that never occurred. Lawyers shall not lightly seek sanctions or the disqualification of another lawyer for any improper purpose. That's exactly what he did here. By his own admission, Teeter sought misconduct sanctions for an improper purpose. He created the grievance to treat these attorneys as a class. He wanted to create a culture of deterrence and impact unrelated attorneys like other people who weren't even involved, who might hypothetically represent Trump someday. His many misconduct complaints violated the rules, and they're trying to create an inference, namely that Republican lawyers tried to create a coup against the United States. And he did this through a campaign of boilerplate misconduct complaints filed all over numerous jurisdictions against the rules, saying you shouldn't lightly seek sanctions. Our client was swept up in this guy's vendetta against Trump and his well-funded attempts to prevent other lawyers from representing Trump in the future. Where's their money coming from? It's expensive to run ad campaigns and to write all these letters. Considering the 65 ongoing ad campaign, his own stated desire to create a, quote, system of deterrence, and his systematic attempts to sanction any lawyer even tangentially related to Trump, the only possible conclusion is improper purpose. Lawyers meet their obligations to each other, and Teeter's conduct betrays a fundamental lack of professionalism towards other lawyers, and he has transgressed this when he treats the law license of another as a means to an end. It's detestable. And the rules in Utah say that a lawyer's conduct should be characterized at all times by personal courtesy and professional integrity. There's a truth-seeking process when we're dealing with one another. And you should not harass or intimidate others when they're advocating on behalf of a client. His ethics complaints against lawyers, including the complaint against Passantino, transgress the spirit of Utah law. Far from exhibiting personal courtesy, professional integrity, respect for a truth-seeking process, willingness to resolve these things, his boilerplate complaint reflects the attitude in his statements that people should be punished for representing certain political leaders. The history of our profession is filled with accounts of lawyers who risk careers by asserting their independent status. John Adams did that in Boston when he defended the Boston Massacre soldiers. Mr. Passantino and other attorneys attacked Mr. Teeter were seeking to represent their clients in the face of widespread condemnation after J6. They were embodying the highest ideals of the legal profession, namely that in our system, everyone is entitled to legal representation. Teeter improperly and unethically sought to punish them through his terror campaign, love it, of ethics complaints. And for these reasons, we respectfully request that the Office of Professional Conduct in Utah open up a misconduct investigation into the director of the 65 Project, Michael Teeter, signed by Gene Hamilton from America First Legal Foundation, and very nicely written bar complaint. And absolutely true. These guys were trying to take out Republican lawyers, lose their licenses, take them off the game indefinitely. You know how hard it is to get your law license and how much work goes into that? Filing complaints willy-nilly because you're upset that Trump got some lawyers who were investigating actual claims is grotesque. And I do hope Utah investigates it, and hopefully there are more complaints like this that are filed against other people who got bar complaints from this guy. And bars actually investigate these for trying to manipulate them. The bar examiner, the bar administrators should be disgusted that their power was almost exploited by this guy to go after political enemies in America. It's cowardly. It's grotesque. Glad to see that the tables are turning and they're getting hit with a bar complaint that is very well deserved. All right.